selling 3 players we just signed a year ago, and one of them actually a couple of months ago during the January transfer window. The club is looking to collect 75 million euros for players we overpaid, and we're gonna lose on a lot of money. One of them, Douglas Luiz, probably the biggest. We paid around 50 million euros for him from Aston Villa, and now we're looking to ship him out for, well, maybe half, or we're trying to recoup a lot of the money, but is it really possible? The next one up is Nico Gonzalez, another player we paid a lot of money for, 37 million euros, coming from Fiorentina, a player who massively flopped at the club and actually got worse when the season proceeded, and then the Club World Cup probably reached its peak. That's one of them. And then the obvious one, Kelly. We paid over 20 million euros for Kelly, knowing it was a mistake at the time, and now being convinced it's a mistake, and the club is looking to move out all these players. How are we going to manage to do that? That's one. And how we're going to recoup that money, or most of that money, that's the second part. Before we get into it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get straight into the talk. So as you can see in my intro, I talked about it. We trying to get 75 million euros from sales from players who have flopped. But that's what it is. Lloyd Kelly, Douglas Luiz, and Nico Gonzalez, and we won around 75 million euros according to the Corriere dello Sport. Let's start off with Douglas Luiz. We paid around 50 million. If I hear talks about, you can be involved in a Jadon Sancho swap, straight cash, or straight value, but it won't be like that. But around 30 million, we are losing a lot of money. Yes, he hasn't played and he had injuries, and I get that point, but still, you're trying to sell to the Premier League. I see Newcastle paid 60 million euros for Elanga. He's not worth 60 million. I'm not saying we should be getting 60 for Douglas Luiz, but you should get fair value from Douglas Luiz. There should be something like a Premier League tax. What he has done in the Premier League should not be forgotten. Yes, he was injured and he wasn't well playing for us, or there was no consistency because he was not being played. There were a lot of injuries, etc. But still, you need to get more money than 20, 25, 30 million. You should be getting more. At one point, as a club, you need to improve at selling players. You need to find a way to get more out of the players, even more than they're worth, because we overpay, but we never over receive, however you want to call it. We don't. Another player, for example, is Nico Gonzalez. That's a weird one as well. We overpaid. We're going to lose a lot of money if there actually will be an offer. Whoever is that offer going to be? Is it Nottingham Forest? Is it another Premier League club? They're not paying 37 million for Nico Gonzalez, and I don't blame them, by the way. But you cannot sell for 18 million euros. At the end of the day, at Fiorentina, he was decent. He's an international because a lot of people value those things. Yes, he had a poor season, but as a club, you cannot just ship out players just to ship them out. Certain players you can, who have extremely low value, but players who have a lot of value on the books, you cannot just ship them out and they're like, whatever, move on. At some point, you're going to need to do a better job. Kelly, the next one, a mistake from minute one. That's a player you're not going to recoup money. Not even from the Premier League clubs. They're not going to sign Lloyd Kelly on a big fee. You're going to lose money. But when it comes to these players, it's better to lose money than lose games and points when he's in the lineup. That's how you should be looking at it, the club. Just bite the bullet on this one, because you're going to lose points. And that dropping points will actually lead into losing actually more money as well. So those are things that you just need to stick away. You need to accept it and move on. That's one of those things. Now, in other news, Ndidi. I want to talk about Ndidi because it feels like it's 2018, So the news is from Tuttosport saying that Comoli is looking at Ndidi, a bit like the Castagna news. They got relegated, so there's basically a release clause that he can leave for 10 million and a half. However, Everton are interested. Fulham, Al Ali is interested as well. Ndidi was a top player when he was in the Belgium league. When he went to the Premier League as well, first 2 seasons, top. And then he took a dive. I think he's been injured for about 50, 60 games. Somebody needs to look it up. I'm just guessing, but it will be close. Last 4 seasons, at least 50 games. He's injury prone. He's not that old. He's 28, so he's not old. And I think the potential he had was unbelievable. And yes, I've witnessed it live, so maybe I'm a bit biased. But those are not the players you should be signing at all. I don't care if he was 1 million euros. He struggles to stay fit. That's one. And the quality is not what it should be. So these are links that are just hopefully out there because, well, it's cheap. It's 10.5 million euros. Fine, but they're not going to improve us. Believe me, even though he has more qualities than a lot of midfielders in our team, it's not coming out of it. Like the quality he had or has or should be having is not translating to the pitch. And maybe it's because of the injuries or whatever. Maybe he got stale at Leicester, etc. But those are things, even if it's cheap, you should not be getting involved in these type of deals. You won't, because you will get in a situation where 2 years from now you're like, oh my god, how are we gonna get rid of Ndidi? Even if it was 10 million and a half, you will be in those situations. So that can definitely not happen when it comes to Ndidi, for example. It's another thing we're linked with, or another player we're linked with, another thing we shouldn't be doing is this one. It's Florentino Luis from Benfica. Actually, that link has been there even when Juntoli was in charge, saying that, you know, they're willing to let him leave on a loan with an obligation around 40 million euros, and we are considering, you know, looking for that player, etc. And he fits the profile. Every time I watch him play, and I'm not gonna say I watch Benfica week to week, I don't, but I've watched quite some Benfica games the last couple of seasons. Every time I watch him play, not once was I sitting there, I'm like, that's actually a player. And that's not to say he's bad or like, oh my God, what a disaster. But for 40 million euros, I'm like, that's not really a player we should be, you know, spending money on at this in the situation we are in as a club. Then you rather spend, if you want a defensive midfield or whatever, you want another type of midfield or whatever, then spend money on Ederson even more. But at least you've seen him in the league, and you've seen his qualities up close. The Florentino one is like, it's not going to move the needle, is it? You know, so maybe it's just a link to link, you know, but that link has been there for a couple of weeks, months, years, whatever you want to say. And the Ndidi one as well, it's not a one off. It's been out there, and I try to ignore it as much as possible, but it has been out there. So at one point, you need to talk about it. But whilst you're talking about it, you're like, please let it not happen. Because, I mean, if you give me Ndidi from 2018, I'm like, hype. But it's not. It's 2025, almost 2026. We're halfway through almost, you know. So links that don't make any sense. Right now, it's about sales, and we're going to lose money on certain players. But as a club, you need to find value in these players. You cannot just give away players, because at that point, it's going to be a very, very long window when you're trying to buy players, actually. Forget about selling. When you're trying to buy players, it's going to be long because of the things you didn't do well when you were selling players. Anyways, in the comments, let me know what you think. Like the video, and I will speak to you guys soon. Ciao.